And I'm Matthew Becker from Industrial Athletics.
Today we're going to discuss the Kipping Muscle Up drills. So as you may recall from our previous videos, we discussed the kip on the rings and how we apply pressure backwards as opposed to pulling on the rings in order to make it more proficient and more smooth. Okay? So what we have today is a couple of exercises to kind of improve and physically prepare you to use the right muscles in order to apply that pressure back on the rings. Okay? And what we need for the purposes of this exercise is a foam roller and a barbell. Okay?
For CrossFit purposes, this technique of muscle up is much more efficient than what we're used to. You know, traditionally in CrossFit, we pull from the bottom of the rings to our chest and then try to transition over top of the rings. And if we don't have the strength to do that, then we're going to start to fail on those reps rather quickly. This technique uses more of our momentum to pull back on the rings to create a moment of weightlessness, so all we have to do then is transition around and on top of the rings. And the technique itself allows us to get more reps before having to come off the rings to rest.
Alright, so let's get going, shall we? So, place the foam roller on the floor, like so. And then you want the barbell just above your hips, so that when you can hang underneath it, you can hang with straight arms and still be kind of elevated off the floor. Okay? So when you place your legs on the foam roller, you want it just below your calves. Okay, and then your shoulders are directly underneath the bar, like so. So what Matt's going to do now is apply pressure backwards and extend his body out this way. Okay, and hold at the top and then slowly come back down. Good. And then one more time. And what you see as he's extending, his whole body rises, which is effectively what happens on the rings in the kip. Okay, come down. Good. So what happens, when you do this exercise is, as you apply pressure, your whole body rises, creating that moment of weightlessness, which is, at that point, is the time where you perform the actual kipping muscle up action. Okay? A couple of mistakes that happen with this is that people will not necessarily hold the extended position properly. So what they'll do is they'll go back and forth, and using the swing and the momentum from the roller and not actually use the muscles that you need in order to perform this skill effectively. So what I would recommend is really being as slow and controlled as possible, so that when you extend, you hold at the top for a count of 3 at least, and then slowly lower back. Okay, and hopefully perform this exercise about 5 times to really develop that strength. And then once you've got this down, you can take it to the next level where you'll start to learn the actual technique for the kipping muscle up action. So once you've got that foam roller exercise down, you can now start to progress to the next exercise, which is really catered towards understanding the technical aspects of the kipping muscle up action. Okay, so it's not necessarily a strength skill, it's more kind of a learning process where you'll actually learn the technique of the kipping muscle up. Okay, so what you're going to do, what I'm going to ask Matt to do, is to stand directly, feet underneath the rings, like so. Okay, grab the rings, and then bend your knees and go into a hanging motion. Okay, making sure his body is tight. Notice he doesn't have a false grip, because in the kipping muscle up, there shouldn't be a false grip. It's a shift of the wrists when you're in the weightless phase of the action. Okay, so what I'm going to ask him to do is apply pressure back and out. And he goes, and you'll see it makes his body rise. Good. And now I'm going to ask him to perform the kipping muscle up. Good. And again. So going back down. Notice he pulls back and out and then brings the rings around in a nice smooth action. Now, the more proficient you can get with that exercise, the better your kipping muscle up is going to be. So the faster you can do that skill without any kind of hesitation, the better it's going to be when it comes to performing the skill on the big rings. Okay? A couple of mistakes that often occur with this exercise. People will try to muscle it too much as opposed to use the momentum and use the technique. So, for instance, let's see a muscle kind of exercise like so.
Really difficult, actually.
Yeah, it makes it way harder and it kind of defeats the purpose of the exercise. Another common mistake is people will try to pull on the rings this way as opposed to apply pressure back that way, which once again it defeats the purpose of why we're working this skill. Once again, it's all about applying pressure back and around, so we will continue the direction of the rings during the kick, so that it makes it way more efficient and proficient to start, performing more numbers with the kipping muscle up. And those are the kipping muscle up drills.